Okay, so now we're going to talk about the pedestal with all the controls. So up here we have our screen, represents our Davi Rolls, the way it's positioned from the end. We have a cover on the screen. We're going to keep the cover on while in use, but for demonstration purposes only, we're going to lift it up so you can see it a little clearer. Okay, but remember, always have the cover on this for the dust and particles that are going to get into the computer system. All right. So now we're going to run through the sequence of powering up or turning on the Davi Rolls. There's a few buttons we got to talk about prior to starting it up. So we're going to talk about this green button right here. So green button, considered an action button or a dead man switch, which means it must be held down at all times in order to do any operation on the machine. As soon as it's released, nothing will work. The machine will run, but it will not operate. Okay, so that's the green button, dead man switch or action button. Then we move over here to our blue button. Our blue button is called the interface button or referred to as a reset button. Okay, so we talk about both, and we'll call it a reset button for now. Sometimes in industry they'll call it as an interface button, but it's a reset button. Okay. Down here we have our side bending roll controls. We can see we have an X, represents the X side, which is written on the machine, and we have a Y side, which is also represented on the machine. We have Y here, and the other side would represent X. Representing X, it's a four-way switch. This would be X roll up and X roll down. And representing the Y would be Y side up or Y side down. Okay. Over here we have another set of buttons, cluster of buttons. This is our direction of travel. Okay. So when we have our material in, we want to travel one way, we press that button. If we want to travel the opposite way, we press S plus or this button here. On the top and bottom of this cluster, we have what's called auxiliary. This represents our end stock or our tail stock right here. So we want to open or close it depending on what we have in the machine. If we have a complete circle rolled in the machine, we want to open up that tailstock so we can take the material out. If we don't have a complete circle in there, we don't need to use the auxiliary button. We can just roll it out the end. This cluster of buttons right here, we're not touching at all. These, for what we're doing, we're not using these buttons at the moment. So don't even look at these, don't even touch them. So we're going to look at the green button, this cluster of buttons, our safety, our toggle, and this cluster down here. Okay. We're going to move back to this cluster of buttons over here. Representing on the left-hand side, we have an indication of PO, which means pinch open. So remember we talked about our pinch roll. So this is to open up the pinch roll to release the pressure on the material. On the right-hand side here we have PI, and that's to pinch in. So material, we want to pinch it in. We want to grab the material so that we can perform some work in this machine.